Howdy there, everyone. It's been a few months. I posted a video a while back of this amp, and it got quite a bit of views and also quite a bit of hate because I posted that I had a modified amplifier, and people were mad that I hadn't done more with it, and then all I had done was swap the speaker and the tubes, which is true. It's considered a modification to me, but it's also subjective. So I actually did quite a bit more modification to this amp. I'll try and run through this quickly. So if you didn't see the previous video, vintage grade Greenback, it's a 25 watt 8 ohm. Stock spring reverb tank in the bottom. Now you'll notice if you have one of these amps, that is not factory. So what we have going on here is I actually found a forum post. Someone had done this modification to their amp, and it got me really curious. So I actually did it myself. Because it's technically a reversible mod. If you have to rebuy the cathode bias because you have to cut it off. But anyways, so basically what this modification does is it controls the amount of cold clipping that's coming from the first tube. So basically the guy that made the initial forum post was saying that this amp is actually very similar to a Marshall Plexi. So what he was saying is that this is actually cutting out a lot of the cold clipping in its stock form. So what this does is it's actually allowing more cold clipping the further you get up on this knob. Now his was a 3-way dip switch. I pulled this out of a Roland amp. It's the same thing. It's just doing, it's a little bit different. It's basically the new bias that I did. I used resistors for it. It's a 1.5K resistor, a 2.17K resistor, a 4.7K resistor, and a 10K, which would be the stock form. I basically consider them to be a Marshall Plexi, a Tweed Deluxe, a blackface, and the stock form. That's how I went with it. I also installed an IEC plug. The factory wire is just wired straight into the amp. I decided to go a little bit of a different route with that. This looks a lot better, and it works just as good. So I use this amp so much, the cord was actually like cutting inside of the amp, so I had to replace it anyways. The other mod that I was going to say that I did was that I actually biased the power tubes. There's actually a spot on this amp where you can do it inside. On the board itself, there's actually a bias, like potentiometer, I guess, that you can control with a flathead screwdriver. So all I did was, I'll put a link below to the post where they talked about how to do this as well. These are really simple mods. It'll only take a couple hours to do all this stuff. And it vastly improves the amp. So what I'm going to do here is all the sounds I'm going to be doing are pretty overdriven. I'm going to run through the settings on the amp and in the mod that I did so you can hear what it sounds like. Yeah, that should be about it. We'll get started. So I should mention, while this is heating up, I'm using a Greco EG 700. This is the same guitar I used in the last video. Great guitar, sounds really good. It's just standard PAF pickup style. The U1000 Max on pickups if you care that much. So. Alright, we're going to start on the Marshall Plexi setting. I'm going to just do the gain about 5. I think that will demonstrate the amp pretty well. I'll do like 5.5. And I'll start the bridge pickup. Alright, here we go. I want you to hear what it sounds like when it's a little more saturated. demonstrate. So now this is what I'm going to consider the Tweed Deluxe setting. I'm taking back the cold clipping just a little bit. The top end is kind of being shaved off a little bit if you want to think about it like that, just with the clipping. Next setting, this is what I'm going to call the black face. There's not much difference between these two settings. Shaving off a little bit more. Now this is the stock form. This is exactly how it would have came from the factory. Turn it all the way back up. Just listen for the bass. The bass will get tighter and there'll be more cold clipping allowed to come through on this setting. I just turned it back to the plexi setting. I think this amp sounds so much better with these mods done to it. I almost sold this amp to get something else. I decided to dig a little more and I ended up finding a lot more. I'm not going to show you now. I'm going to turn the gain down to like 2.5. Turn the volume up a lot more. And I'm going to do this. What you're going to notice is that this is where this amp should be living. It's a very good tone. The more volume we give this amp, the more the power tubes are getting pushed. Less gain, less the preamp tubes get pushed. You'll notice that it barks a little more in this setting. A lot more structure, and it's a lot more barky and punchy, but notice I only have the gain on 3 and the amp still overdrives like crazy. Obviously I'm using a humbucker guitar with PAFs in it, so they're not even that hot really. This amp is great. Couldn't be any more thrilled with it, so I'll play it a little bit more so you can hear it. That's the end of the video, thanks.